back to another episode of Lemonade with Aplomb. My guest is Ophira Eisenberg, one of the funniest people I know. Welcome, Ophira.
Thanks, Jason. Hi.
Hi. So my comedian friend, who's also the host of Ask Me Another on NPR, and
Right. Yes.
and we know each other because we performed together for a show that I was producing of Jewish comedians performing at a Chinese restaurant at Christmas called Muju Comedy.
Right.
And you performed on 2 subsequent years or 3?
2. Yeah.
2 years,
It was
okay.
two different locations.
Yeah, it was
I think
great.
maybe your second one, it was like one was like early on and you just switched locations.
Yeah.
And then another one that was also very fun.
Yeah, because we were in Vermont, New Hampshire, and Connecticut, and I know that that we had a lot of fun together.
Yeah, it's great.
So before we dive in, because this show is about leaders and what do they do when they're handed lemons. And so my question
Which
for
is
you.
all of life.
What's that?
Which is all of life.
All of life, pretty much, yeah.
I mean,
You've
yeah.
never been handed lemons, have you?
No. It's all easy.
Life's a bowl.
Every challenge, I'm like, hilarious.
Okay, funniest thing about COVID.
Funniest thing about COVID. Okay, well, things are only funny about COVID if you're healthy. But I would say, as a parent of a 4-year-old, before this, I didn't realize that, I didn't really parent. Nope, I didn't. I mean, really, just without the structure in the school, like with the lessons, the babysitter, everything taken away. It turns out what I was doing before was like very minor influence on this child. Now we're going to see what my real influence is going to produce. But as a working mother, no one ever told me that I would actually have to raise my own child.
There should be like a label, a warning or something on that. Oh my goodness. Well, I found that I have an incredible capacity to fight about meaningless things all the time.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, are they meaningless or are they now more meaningful because everything has different stakes?
There's maybe that's the spin I need to put on it. No, it really does matter that you do what no, it's and I catch myself afterwards, but
that's closer. That's closer than ever.
Baby steps.
That's right. The fact that you catch yourself at all is closer. Like I always do that too, where I'm like, oh, I've thought of such a great reaction afterwards. And I'm like, all we have to do is slowly work on moving that a little up in the timeline.
Oh my God. This is great. Parenting advice from comedians. That's what.
Yeah. I also think like we're, many people, if you're talking to leaders all the time, obviously, these are high achieving people. And I'm sure like with COVID, there is the ongoing joke of like, oh, it turns out that meeting was just an email, or it turns out that international business trip was a 30-minute Zoom meeting. Like that we have shifted what we need in terms of time. And I think also for all of us with running to-do lists in our brain of like, given, the reason I never get to that is because I have to do this and I have to go there and blah, blah, blah. And with most of that removed, what are you doing? And so I've come to realize for myself, I mean, I feel like I have zero time with adding a 4-year-old into the mix 24/7, because it's not like we can give them more screen time, I guess, but I hate that. But it's like, oh yeah, that writing project? Not gonna happen. I think some people out there fashion themselves like they're like, oh, one day I will, and I'm not saying that day won't come, but I'm just saying if you've always wanted to be a writer and you haven't written anything in this time and you managed to be healthy, maybe you're not a writer. That's fine. But maybe it's time to let that dream go. Move on to a different dream.
That's right. Okay, you have all the time in the world to just finally focus, and that didn't work either. Huh.
That's right. Yeah.
Saying.
Yes. But I'm highly jealous of that because I do have friends who do not, who may, some of them are not parents, some of their kids are older, and they're like reading classic books that are, you know, require a lot of attention, or they're picking up a guitar that they haven't played for years, or they're going online and learning another language. And, you know, they're literally like, what are you doing? And I'm like, you know, they're meditating. I'm like, I'm practicing inner screaming. That's what I'm doing.
So I would love to get my screaming to become inner.
That's what I'm
That would be
working
a
on.
goal.
That's what I'm working on.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's something that opera singers use to practice at home so they don't disturb everyone called a belt box, which is like this little sort of fashion. It kind of looks like a little, yeah, like a muzzle almost, a large muzzle, but you just hold it near your face if you need to like belt out to practice. And I was thinking, how great would that be for screaming?
Wow.
Yeah, they're also sold out on Amazon currently. So
I'm going to buy that for my family members.
yeah, I'm serious. They're sold out. You're going to have to wait till like August or something.
Oh, right. COVID. Darn it. Yeah. Yes. Okay. So we're making fun of something that's really horrible.
That's you gotta laugh.
That's
You gotta
what.
find humor somewhere.
Right. That's what comedians do. And so
Yeah.
you're still doing your. How are you still doing your comedy?
So right, comedy. So as far as stand up is concerned, stand up does exist. There are Zoom shows out there, or it's the main platform, and I have performed, or Instagram Live, and I have performed. I put it in air quotes because it's a very different feeling. I'm wearing slippers half the time. I mean, if I'm not wearing slippers, I'm wearing bare feet. So I guess I never, it's amazing going to do a show. And I mean, I haven't used a purse other than to go grocery shopping once a week. I don't even know what's in my purse. I picked up my purse the other day. I was like, what is this thing? Useless. Just need a wallet. But I used to, you know, I live in New York, so I'm used to like always going around with my bag, in and out of shows, pull out my book, blah, blah. No, all that's gone. So it's just a totally different experience. And stand up through this format, I would say is imperfect. It's certainly a different kind of thing because you know, you get some people on screen to laugh, but this feels much more like watching television or just a video than it does a live performance. So, you know,
Right.
people have no problem just kind of being like, you know, they don't feel that same like engagement that you have to feel or in a live performance. And there's none of that bouncing thing that happens in a live audience where the group mentality kind of lifts each other up and you can, you know, so it's a different feeling, but it does exist. And then the NPR show, you know, that's a live show.
Right.
It's a live game show with live contestants. And we decided very early on that we wanted to try to pivot. And, you know, let me tell you, if there was ever an upside to having to re-envision a creative project or all kinds of projects,
Mm-hmm.
you know, in this format, everybody had to really scale things down if they were trying to attempt a project. It was like, okay, how can we do it through this? So all of a sudden we were like, hard to do contestants because people need decent recording atmospheres and also they are nervous. So let's just call up our comedian friends and play games with them. So then it also meant like, okay, then our games have to be a little bit easier because most of our contestants are very like super smart, you know, when they're ready for a game show. But comedians might not be. They might not know all of this like trivia. That might not be.
Are you saying comedians aren't smart?
No, they are smart, but I feel like the people that come on our show are like athletes.
Yeah.
You know? And they just know, if they know pop culture, they know pop culture. You know, they pull out I will go through the script because I don't write the games. We have game writers for those things. And I will go through the script and look at something and I'll be like, how could anyone get this unless this is their specialty?
Right.
You know, a piece of like a name of an opera or just a certain historical moment. It's just like, this is not, I wouldn't put this in common knowledge. Oh yeah, people get it. It's like amazing. Or you ask them to do, literally gymnastics in their brains with mashups and anagrams and all these things. And, for
Right.
me, that
Oh
is
God. Yeah.
really hard.
Uh-huh.
And without a pen and paper in your brain. And, we would have these contestants on that would just pull it off. So you can't expect that of everyone. And so then it was, and we have to write quizzes that are a little easier, or have options, either the multiple choice or true false or whatever. So then the focus ended up being like, well, then this is all about just being funny. Like, it's gonna be less about winning the games and more about being funny and more about the banter and the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And we always had a problem with the final round. We had a game show that ended up with a final round, and it was a piece of formatting that was fraught. We never quite figured it out. We never figured out how to engage the listener, that they cared in that final moment of the show,
Right.
without the visual aspect, right? It's an audio show. And so all of a sudden the final round seemed ridiculous. We can't do a final round. Also meant like taking people in different locations on Zoom and making them talk to each other. That's very hard with a lot of voices. So we just had to scrap it. And in some ways, as we scrap things and had to change things and make it more about this, and like basically turn up the level of one thing because we had to turn down the level of another, I think we made a better show. I think we
That's
made a
excellent.
warmer, funnier show that is still like with like the fun things to learn and trivia, but I do think it's a better product.
That's great.
Yeah,
Congratulations.
yeah, I know. I don't wish again for a global
Oh,
pandemic
right.
to help us figure out something. But I'm very happy that everyone was game for, I think change was on the rise just in terms of what we wanted to do with the show, but there was so many things in our way, and then everything was taken away and we had to change. And I think it was super positive.
And that's my line of work, facilitating change when I'm not being a comedian. Um,
Yeah.
so for you, was there change that you experienced early in your life that kind of helped you rise like a phoenix?
Rise like a phoenix. There was so much change in my life. I mean, there was traumatic change in my life because I was in a terrible car accident when I was a kid.
Oh,
I was in a terrible car accident when I was a kid. And when I was 8 years old, that I was very lucky to survive. And so, just basically, and so from that moment, I always felt different. I was somewhat treated differently. There was a lot of processing to do with just like a event like that early on in your life. So, I did think about my life. Like as an 8-year-old, I thought about my life. As a 9-year-old, I thought about my life. I really was piecing things together in a way that many of my classmates and friends were not. And that's a change that I'm still processing basically what that meant and how to think through things. I think for a while I suffered from something classic now called survivor's guilt, because not everyone in the car survived.
oh, wow.
And
Oh, God.
and then other times in my life, I think a lot of the adults said things to me as a child, like, you were meant to, the way people put positive spins on things. They were like, you were meant to do something, or you matter in a certain different way. So that sometimes I felt pressure that I wasn't living up to
Oh,
this
wow.
bizarre idea that I was supposed to be special or something because I was still alive. But the one positive thing that probably led to me to where I was is that I think I felt a great need to have a voice. I felt a great need to tell a story. I felt a great need to put my experience out there
Hmm.
and as I sort of gained the other side of it and started talking about it, I think I told a Moss story about it almost now 10 years ago. And
Right.
it was very frightening for me to do that. And it was just a 10-minute version of a huge life story. But, and it was for art. It was not for therapy. So it was certainly packaged and rethought of in a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
And, when you take those kinds of risks to tell your story in life, you gratefully get a lot of great things back, because then you get the connection. Then you get other people saying, some people are like, I experienced almost exactly the same. Other people are like, I didn't experience that, but it reminds me exactly how this felt to me, because it's the same emotions that resonate. You don't have to go through the same things, the same emotions. And that connection and that feeling of not being alone and not speaking into the void and not feeling like bottled up inside and wrestling with all these different things is really when you start feeling the healing and the possibilities and the potential and the humanity and the ability to kind of rise up and move forward.
That's beautiful, and that's amazing how, I mean, we're talking about change, the COVID and the social distancing changes that we're all experiencing, and how that sparked creativity for you, and how when you were a young child that that gave you kind of the presence of mind to be thinking about your life and to be mindful of it and planful and aspirational and have those big cheers. That's great to have
Yeah.
as a strength underneath your belt.
I mean, with plenty of messing up and chaos in between.
Of course.
Don't get me wrong.
Of course. But most people get that part.
Yeah.
It's a question of, when we're looking at change and people are freaking out, it's important to remind them that great things are going to come from this, and be aware of that. And everyone's takeaway is going to be a little bit different. But
Yeah.
if you can figure out what is your super strength, then they can apply that.
I think we attribute this kind of thinking either to the way elderly people think, like really old people think about their life, or sometimes with a sort of like Zen yogic meditation experience. But I do think about it all the time, which is like in the morning, if you are lucky enough to open your eyes, you got another shot at this whole thing.
That's right.
Got another shot, and like what are you going to do with it?
So
It's hard. It's not easy.
So it's hard to see the future, but what do you see for the future? What changes to the comedy scene, or what changes to NPR? Oh, I want to ask you a question first about NPR. So you were saying that your format has improved and you think you have a better product, and
Yeah.
that's terrific. Congratulations. I'm curious, do you have a sense of, is listenership up?
Well, as far as I know, actually, as far as I know, just radio is up. Podcast, not so much. I think people are still listening to podcasts, but I also think that podcasts were so much a part of people's commute, and
Right.
So also pretending that they were working. Like people can work with earphones on at work, and they were, and I think, for people that are able to go on walks by themselves or walking the dog or all kinds of other things, they're still listening to podcasts. But just radio, the idea of having your radio on at home, if you have such a device, that went really, all of a sudden everyone was at home, so they put their radios on. It's like the same thing that mattress sales went out the roof, because everyone suddenly was like, I'm in my home all the time and my bed is so important to me.
I did not know that.
Yeah. So if you're in the mattress business, good for you.
I was thinking, like, people are like, I want another bed, I only have one.
It's possible too. It's possible.
Let's switch it up, put one in the living room.
But we, and I don't know if it's because of, again, where we all are, but the amount of listener love coming in terms of people writing letters and getting in touch through social media was more than ever. So that to me felt, and it, and I say I felt that we were doing a better product. And then, you just have random listeners writing in and saying things like, not for nothing, I like these more. And you're like, I know. And it's sad because I love live performance. I love going in front of a live
Oh
audience.
yeah.
But, the idea that maybe that's not happening right now, and maybe it's not going to happen for this show anymore, part of me goes like, sad, that is sad. Or is it just like, no, it's flexible and nimble. Also, not for nothing, but it's cheaper. And right now we need cheaper solutions. It's
It's
so
so
much
true.
cheaper.
It is so true. Yeah. I'm able to facilitate retreats, but they have to be remote. So there's no travel cost, there's no travel time. So it reduces the cost for some clients. And
Yeah.
different method. It's like, oh, well, can this work? And actually this works fine. I mean, I think it's always better in person, but we can
Yes.
still accomplish a lot. So
Right. I agree. And also if someone said to me, well, you have a choice, you can do it how you were and get canceled because it's expensive, or you can figure out a new way that's cheaper and still do it. I'm going to pick that.
right. So
You know?
so thinking ahead to a time when, I don't know, maybe it's different.
Yeah.
What's going to stick? What's going to change to the industry, either comedy or NPR?
Yeah, well, I think, for our show, I think we will go back to touring live. Like, we will do a live version of the show probably a dozen times a year to, basically go out and meet our fans in other parts of the country. And it's a model that a lot of podcasts and audio shows use, right? You do a
Yeah.
live show. But I think NPR is going to redo a lot of their office space. I think they're going to reduce people having to be in the office if they don't have to be there. I think that's just gone.
Yeah.
And I think that's fine. I think a lot of this is going to be reimagined. I think with the stand-up shows, I think, classes and panels and a lot of that stuff, I think there's going to be more of it online. It's not going to be as great, but the one thing that is great is you get people who normally could never be there. Get people
Right.
from all over the world. So to be able to connect with those people, and it seems so simple. It's like, what couldn't we before? Yeah, sure, but nobody did it
Right.
in
Right.
this way.
Right.
And from a stand-up point of view, it's going to be a slow process but there are some clubs open, and it's going to be right now they're whatever half full. I don't know. Maybe it's going to be, my hope is that when there's a vaccine, because I assume that will be really when there's a chance at life being what it was.
Right.
And when
Right.
there's a vaccine and when people decide to go out, they are going to, it's not going to be a jeans culture anymore. People are going to put on those clothes
Okay.
and get excited.
Get my pearls. I'm ready.
Yeah, we are going out and really have, like, really seize the moment and and hopefully that lasts. I know that we are, in the same way that we are resilient with change, we are so we are so adaptive. That's like yesterday's luxury becomes tomorrow's like everyday like inconvenience.
Right. Well, I look forward to that. I look forward to seeing you again in person.
Yeah, I know. Wouldn't that be fun in
Yeah.
person?
And it's always great to run into you and see you, and thank you so much for joining me on
Thank
Lemonade.
you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yay.